The Legend of Jigong, Chapter 91.
So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We have these 5 seasoned heroes, right? And they are given one incredibly simple rule by the legendary eccentric monk Jigong.
Yeah, the setup is remarkably straightforward, which is honestly exactly why the subsequent failure is so spectacular to analyze.
Like a train wreck in slow motion.
Exactly. These 5 heroes, and keep in mind these are figures of considerable martial prowess and reputation. They are instructed by Jigong to stay inside the Penglai temple for exactly 1 month.
1 month.
That is the only rule. Just stay put. Do not leave the temple grounds. If they break this rule, Jigong warns them they will face mortal danger. It's a classic narrative quarantine.
And it sounds so easy on paper. Like,
Yeah.
you're telling me all I have to do to avoid mortal danger is just hang out in a peaceful temple for 30 days.
Sign me up, right?
Like, I mean, yeah. Catch up on some reading, meditate, take a few naps. It sounds like a mandatory staycation. But the way this actually plays out reminds me way less of a staycation and more of like a pressurized submarine.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, you seal people inside a metal tube, drop them to the bottom of the ocean, and the external pressure doesn't just crush the hull immediately. It waits for the tiniest hairline fracture, single loose bolt, and then the whole thing violently implodes.
That submarine analogy captures the psychological reality of this scenario perfectly. Because the narrative we are examining today is really a masterclass in how human nature practically guarantees that a structural boundary like this will be breached from the inside.
Right, they defeat themselves.
Yes, the story doesn't introduce a massive apocalyptic threat to draw them out of the temple. It doesn't present them with an irresistible treasure or a damsel in distress. The architect of their doom isn't a grand villain laying siege to the gates.
No, it's something way more pathetic than that.
It's something far more insidious, universal, and internally generated.
It's boredom.
Pure boredom.
Sheer, unadulterated boredom. We don't start this sequence with an epic clash of swords. We start with a guy who just cannot sit still.
Right, Lu Tong.
Yeah, let's look closely at Lu Tong. His nickname in the martial arts world is the 10,000-mile flyer. So you take a guy whose entire identity, whose very namesake, is built on relentless movement, speed, and boundless freedom.
And you lock him inside the static courtyard of a temple.
Exactly. I mean, it's psychological torture for a guy like that.
It really is. We have to consider the psychology of a wuxi hero here. These are individuals who interface with the world entirely through kinesthetic interaction. Their bodies are highly tuned instruments of action.
They need to move.
Right. When you remove their ability to roam, their internal energy, their literal qi, in the context of the genre, it stagnates. So to relieve this intense, mounting boredom and physical frustration, the text details Lu Tong's coping mechanism.
He grabs his staff.
He grabs his staff and starts practicing his martial arts routines right there in the courtyard.
And the details provided about his practice routine are fascinating to me. He doesn't just absent-mindedly swing a stick around. The text explicitly outlines that he practices exactly 36 left-side stances, 48 right-side stances, and 6 farm stances.
Yes, very specific numbers.
Can we break down the historical and cultural significance of this specific routine? Because that asymmetry, 36 on the left, 48 on the right, it strikes me as highly unusual for a martial art.
It is unusual, and it reveals an immense amount about his martial arts lineage and his socioeconomic background within the world of the novel.
Okay, how so?
Well, in classical Chinese martial arts, particularly those associated with high-minded philosophical lineages, like Wudang Taiji Quan, for example, symmetry is paramount.
Right, the whole yin and yang thing.
Exactly. Symmetrical forms reflect cosmic balance, the harmonization of yin and yang. If you do a move on the left, you generally repeat its mirror image on the right to maintain internal equilibrium.
So an asymmetrical routine implies an imbalance, or, I don't know, a purely practical focus.
Yeah, exactly the latter. The asymmetry of 36 left and 48 right stances suggests a highly specialized, practical, and perhaps aggressive combat style.
So it's not for show.
No, it implies a martial art that evolved on the battlefield or the chaotic streets, where you really don't care about philosophical balance. You care about protecting your dominant side or exploiting a specific weapon's weight distribution.
That makes total sense.
But, the inclusion of the 6 farm stances is the most telling detail of all.
I was actually going to ask about that. What exactly is a farm stance?
So, in the history of Chinese martial arts, many styles originated not in pristine monasteries, but among the peasantry.
Oh, like working class martial arts.
Exactly. During times of famine or unrest, farmers had to defend their villages from bandits, and they couldn't afford expensive swords or spears. They used what they had. agricultural implements.
Right, like pitchforks and stuff.
Flails, hoes, and long wooden staves used for carrying water or threshing wheat. So a farm stance implies movements derived from these grueling practical labor motions, wide, sweeping strikes, relying on core momentum rather than, delicate wrist work.
Okay, so it grounds Lu Tong as a character. He isn't some high-born aristocratic swordsman with a pristine lineage.
Not at all. He's a grounded, pragmatic, rough-around-the-edges fighter.
Right, so you have this raw, kinetic, asymmetrical energy completely bottled up in this delicate, quiet, highly ordered temple environment. The tension is palpable. You just know this pressure cooker is going to blow a gasket.
It's inevitable.
And it does in the most mundane way possible. He's going through his 36 lefts and 48 rights, getting really into the flow of the movement, and he accidentally shatters a flower pot.
It's so mundane, but the breaking of the flower pot is a vital narrative trigger. In a lesser story, a hero might break a rule by deciding to go fight a dragon.
Right, some grand noble cause.
But here, destiny unravels because of sheer clumsiness. And furthermore, it instantly brings Lu Tong into conflict with the temple's hierarchy.
Yeah, he gets yelled at by a kid.
Exactly, a young Taoist boy. Essentially an acolyte, the lowest rung on the spiritual ladder. He reprimands him.
It's hilarious.
The boy tells this great, renowned hero, the 10,000-mile flyer, to stop making a mess and to take his practice out to the temple gate.
Which is a massive blow to the ego, getting scolded by the spiritual equivalent of an intern.
It absolutely is.
So Lu Tong, feeling chastised, embarrassed, and probably a bit rebellious, decides to comply, but maliciously. He goes out to the gate, and his friend Lei Ming decides to tag along. So now they're at the absolute threshold.
They're lingering right on the very edge of Jigong's protective boundary.
Yeah. They are standing in the doorway of destiny, entirely by their own volition.
And this is where the external world interacts with Lu Tong's internal restlessness. A wild cat suddenly runs past them down the mountain.
A stray cat. The grand catalyst for mortal danger isn't an assassin in the night, it's a feline.
And this wild cat acts as a chaotic agent of fate.
How so?
Well, in Chinese folklore, cats are often associated with yin energy, mystery, and sometimes the supernatural, acting as psychopomps or omens.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
But even on a purely psychological level, the cat pulls directly on Lu Tong's predatory, impulsive nature. He is a bored, highly energetic martial artist looking for an outlet.
And a target presents itself.
Yes, he takes a swing with his staff, and he misses.
And his pride just cannot handle the miss. The guy who does 84 distinct lethal staff routines just got outmaneuvered by a feral cat.
It's humiliating for him.
And he chases it. And he doesn't just chase it into the bushes. He chases this cat for 50 lifts down the mountain.
Yes, 50 lifts.
For context, for anyone who doesn't know, 50 lifts is roughly 15 miles.
An insane distance.
He runs a literal half marathon, abandoning a magical protective quarantine, all because he missed a swing at a cat.
The absurdity of the escalation is the point, I think. It highlights how the desperation for action, combined with a bruised ego, can override all rational thought and prior warnings.
He just completely forgot the monk's warning.
Completely. He was explicitly told he would face mortal danger if he left the temple. But the immediate, visceral frustration of missing a strike on a wild animal completely eclipses the abstract, long-term threat of a monk's prophecy.
Right. The immediate emotion takes over.
He chases the cat until it hides inside a hole in an old grave. And Lu Tong, completely unhinged at this point, starts threatening to smash the grave open.
It's so petty. But this is where the dynamic of the whole group shifts. Because the other three heroes back at the temple, Yang Ming, Kong Gui, and Shen Liang, they find out what happened.
Word gets back to them.
Yeah, the acolyte tells them their friends just sprinted down the mountain after a stray. So these three, acting as the responsible adults in the room, they grab their weapons and chase after Lu Tong and Lei Ming to stop them from desecrating a grave and causing a massive incident.
They want to contain the damage.
Right. They finally catch up to them 15 miles away.
And this crystallizes the psychological irony of the entire situation. The prophecy of doom is now fully in motion. Every single hero has broken the quarantine.
The whole group is out.
But look at the motivations. It's driven by mundane restlessness on Lu Tong's part and a misplaced sense of social responsibility on the part of Yang Ming, Kong Gui, and Chen Liang.
See, if you put yourself in Yang Ming's shoes for a second, it feels incredibly unfair. You're sitting in the temple, following the rules, and your friend runs off to do something that could get you all cursed or arrested.
It puts you in a terrible position.
Yeah. If you stay, Your friend might ruin everything. If you go after him, you broke the rule. I have to push back a little on framing Yang Ming's actions as a failure, though. Weren't those three actually doing the right thing?
From a social standpoint, yes.
Right. Isn't it just a hardwired instinct to protect your group and entirely unfair that trying to be the responsible ones is what dooms them?
Oh, it is entirely unfair, which is why it is such an accurate reflection of how disaster often propagates in real life.
Right. No good deed goes unpunished.
The narrative isn't concerned with the morality of their intentions. It is concerned with the mechanics of consequence.
Okay. Break that down for me.
Well, the rule wasn't, do not leave unless you have a justifiable reason to manage your friend's behavior.
Oh.
The rule was simply do not leave, full stop. By leaving the boundary to mitigate Lu Tong's disaster, Yang Ming and the others allowed Lu Tong's lack of self-control to dictate their own geographic reality.
Wow, yes.
They became participants in his chaos.
So the lesson is, if your friend runs out of the submarine to chase a fish, you don't open the airlock to drag them back inside. You just have to let them go.
Precisely. You cannot save them without drowning yourself. Because they opened their own airlock, they are now 50 kilometers away from their safe zone. They are entirely exposed.
Completely out in the open.
And because they are now in the wrong place at the wrong time, they stumble directly into a high-stakes scenario that has absolutely nothing to do with them.
Right. The story shifts gears instantly here. They are standing by this grave, out of breath, yelling at Lu Tong, when suddenly they hear people shouting from the south. They look over and there's Hua Yunlong running for his absolute life from two officials, Zirui and Luo Biao.
And Hua Yunlong is in a desperate state.
The text describes him as sweating profusely, legs aching, approaching a 10-foot sand ridge that he is terrified he won't be able to climb.
He is a man at the absolute limit of human endurance. And the physiological description is critical here. When the body reaches that level of exhaustion, lactic acid floods the muscles and motor control degrades rapidly.
Your body basically shuts down.
Exactly. The 10-foot sand ridge isn't just an obstacle for him, it is a death sentence. Sand provides no stable footing. If he hesitates, the officials will catch him, and his life is forfeit.
And our five heroes are just standing in the shadows watching this unfold. Lai Ming immediately wants to jump in and help the officials catch the criminal, like, let's be the good guys.
Which is an understandable impulse.
But Yang Ming, the seasoned veteran who just dragged them all the way out here to avoid trouble, he proposes a neutral intervention.
Ah, yes. The neutral intervention.
He says they shouldn't show their faces or take a side. Instead, he plans to stay hidden, throw a stone to trip Hua Yunlong as he climbs the ridge, and let the officials catch him naturally.
The illusion of the neutral intervention is one of the most dangerous traps in human interaction.
How so?
Yang Ming believes he can manipulate the outcome of a life-and-death struggle from a distance without incurring any karmic debt, social obligation, or personal risk. He wants to play God with a pebble.
Play God with a pebble. That is exactly what he's doing. But here's where it gets really interesting, because his execution is catastrophically flawed.
That's putting it mildly.
Yang Ming picks up the stone, waits until Hua Yunlong is struggling up the sand ridge, and throws it. But as he throws it, for some inexplicable reason, he shouts a warning. He yells, "Yunlong, watch out!" Why on earth would he do that if he's trying to be stealthy?
It is a stunning lapse in judgment, likely born of a deeply ingrained martial code.
A code of honor.
Yes. In Wuxia literature, attacking a man from the shadows without declaring your presence is considered the height of cowardice. Even though Yang Ming is trying to remain uninvolved, his subconscious adherence to chivalric honor forces him to vocalize the attack.
He literally couldn't help himself.
Right. But that shout destroys the physics of his plan. Hua Yunlong hears his name, instinctively dodges to the side, and the stone misses him.
And the stone doesn't just miss. Because Hua dodged, the stone sails past him and flawlessly strikes the pursuing official, Zhu Rui, right in a specific spot called the Huagai acupoint.
Yes, a devastating hit.
Zhu Rui spits a mouthful of blood and collapses. I really want to break down the mechanics of this.
Yeah.
What exactly is the Huagai acupoint, and why does a rock hitting it cause a man to instantly spit blood and drop?
We have to view this through the lens of traditional Chinese medicine and martial arts meridian theory. The body is mapped with pathways through which qi, or vital life energy, flows. The Huagai, which translates to magnificent canopy, is an acupoint located on the conception vessel meridian, right in the center of the sternum.
Oh, right over the chest.
Yes, directly protecting the heart and lungs.
So it's right over the absolute most vital organs.
Exactly. In martial arts, striking a specific acupoint isn't just about blunt force trauma. It's about disrupting the systemic flow of energy. A heavy, localized kinetic strike to the Hua guy creates a massive energetic blockage.
Okay, so it stops the flow. Is there a modern equivalent to this?
From a modern anatomical perspective, we might compare this to commotio cordis.
Commotio cordis, what is that?
It's a lethal disruption of the heart's rhythm caused by a blow directly to the precordial region, coupled with pulmonary contusion.
Oh, wow, like when a baseball hits someone in the chest.
Exactly. The trauma to the lungs and the sudden violent pressure change in the thoracic cavity causes the capillaries to burst, resulting in the expulsion of blood from the mouth. Yang Ming didn't just trip a guy, he effectively delivered a localized, devastating internal explosion to a police officer.
That is wild. And Hua Yunlong, the criminal who a second ago was about to be executed, sees this happen. He scrambles over the ridge, looks down, and sees Yang Ming standing in the shadow.
Because of the shout.
Right. From Hua Yunlong's perspective, he heard Yang Ming call his name in warning and then watched a stone strike his pursuer down with lethal precision. So he believes with absolute certainty that Yang Ming just intentionally saved his life.
It is a catastrophic misunderstanding. By trying to execute a half-measure, an intervention without taking a public stand, Yang Ming has engineered the worst possible outcome.
It's the ultimate botched intervention, like trying to secretly help a coworker on a project but accidentally hitting reply all and getting the boss fired.
That is a brilliant comparison. He assaulted an officer of the law. He facilitated the escape of a wanted man. And the suffocating irony is that by trying not to get involved with the criminal, Yang Ming has become the criminal's literal savior.
Yeah, Hua Yunlong rushes over, falls to his knees, and starts kowtowing, weeping, and thanking Yang Ming for saving his life in his darkest hour. And Yang Ming just stands there, completely trapped. If you put yourself in Yang Ming's shoes, what do you even do here?
He is caught in a profound psychological and cultural snare, heavily reliant on the concepts of Mianzi face and Guangxi relationships.
The cultural pressure to save face.
Yes. To correct Hua Yunlong, Yang Ming would have to admit a deeply humiliating truth. He would have to say, well, I wasn't trying to save you. I was actually trying to trip you from the bushes so the officials could execute you, but I have terrible aim, shouted like an idiot, and accidentally mangled a police officer instead.
But wait, I have to challenge this. Is it really just about ego and face? If Yang Ming admits he was trying to kill Hua Yunlong, and he just demonstrated he has the power to drop a man with a pebble, wouldn't Hua Yunlong, a desperate criminal, just attack them out of pure survival instinct? Isn't Yang Ming's silence actually a tactical retreat?
That is a very astute counterpoint. There is absolutely a survival calculus at play there. Admitting hostile intent to a desperate man who has nothing to lose could trigger an immediate, unpredictable, violent confrontation.
Right, cornered animals are dangerous.
However, the text specifically characterizes Yang Ming as a warm-hearted person. While tactical preservation might be a subconscious factor, his primary internal barrier is his inherent desire to be perceived as a benefactor.
He wants to be the good guy.
Exactly. When Hua Yunlong anoints him as his savior, it strokes the very ego that drove him out of the temple in the first place, the desire to be the responsible, heroic manager of the situation. He cannot relinquish the moral high ground, even if it's built on a lie. So he vaguely accepts the gratitude.
Which immediately creates an obligation, because Hua Yunlong doesn't just say thanks and run off into the sunset.
No, he latches on.
He says he needs to seek refuge at Lingxiao Temple on Mount Gushan with his uncle, the Nine Palaces Taoist, Hua Qingfeng. But Hua Yunlong admits his uncle is incredibly strict, and if he shows up alone as a wanted criminal, his uncle will execute him to protect the family name. So Hua begs his new savior, Yang Ming, to come act as a mediator.
Hua Yunlong is weaponizing the very relationship Yang Ming just accidentally established.
It's manipulative.
Highly manipulative. He is essentially stating, you preserved my life, which means you have assumed responsibility for it. If you abandon me now and my uncle kills me, my blood is on your hands.
Guilt trip of the century.
It is the ultimate trap of assumed roles. Once you accept a title, society expects you to perform the duties of that title.
We've all nodded along to a terrible plan just to avoid being the difficult one in the room, but this is extreme. But crucially, not everyone falls for this trap.
No, not everyone.
Lu Tong, the guy who started this entire mess by chasing the cat, looks at this situation, looks at the weeping criminal, and flat out refuses to go.
He draws a line in the sand.
He lays down an incredibly rigid boundary. He says he will not go up that mountain, and he will certainly not bow down to some cow-nosed Taoist, which is his derogatory term for the uncle. He says he will sit right at the bottom of the mountain and wait for them to get back.
It is a phenomenal character moment. Lu Tong is stubborn, he is prejudiced, he is deeply rude, and he entirely refuses to participate in the polite social pleasantries of escorting a criminal.
He just opts out.
He refuses to perform the emotional labor of smoothing over another man's family drama. He prioritizes his own internal boundary over temporary social harmony.
Which honestly makes him the smartest person in the group at this specific moment. Because the four remaining heroes, Yang Ming, Lei Ming, Chen Lang, and Kang Yi, they leave Lu Tong sitting under a tree and they escort the criminal up the mountain, walking directly into what is essentially a spiritual lion's den.
The transition in the narrative landscape here is critical. They arrive at Lingxiao Temple, and the author meticulously constructs an aesthetic of profound spiritual purity to contrast with the violence that is about to erupt.
It's setting the scene.
Right. They are led through serene courtyards of pine and bamboo, places inherently associated with endurance, flexibility, and Taoist retreat from worldly affairs.
And they enter the crane pavilion. The visual details we get of the uncle, Hua Qingfeng, are incredibly specific. He's sitting on a cloud bed covered in yellow satin. He's wearing a 9-ridged hat, but it's his robe that really stands out.
Yes, the robe is loaded with symbolism.
It's a purple robe embroidered with the bagua, the 8 trigrams, but the text specifically lists 4 of them, Qian, Kun, Li, and Kan, with a Taiji symbol in the center. Can we explain the mechanics of this imagery? Why these 4 specific trigrams?
We must delve into Taoist cosmology and the I Ching, the Book of Changes. The bagua represents the fundamental principles of reality. By explicitly wearing Qian, Kun, Li, and Kan, Hua Qingfeng is wrapping himself in the absolute core pillars of the universe.
Okay, what do they each mean?
Qian represents heaven, pure yang, creative energy. Kun represents earth, pure yin, receptive energy. Lai represents fire, and Kan represents water. These are the cardinal forces.
So it's like wearing the 4 elements.
In a sense, yes.
Okay.
And the Taiji symbol in the center signifies the ultimate source, the state of absolute undifferentiated potential from which yin and yang emerge.
So by wearing this, he isn't just saying, hey, I'm a priest. He's broadcasting, I am the master of cosmic equilibrium. I control the forces of heaven and earth.
Exactly. Purple itself is a color historically reserved for high-ranking Taoist masters and imperial authority. Visually, he is presenting an impenetrable fortress of spiritual authority and perfect internal balance. He even has a green shark-skin sword resting behind him, symbolizing control over martial violence.
But then, amidst all this perfectly balanced cosmic imagery, we get one visceral, jarring detail about his physical appearance. The text says his face looks like raw sheep liver.
It is such a stark contrast.
It completely shatters the Zen illusion.
It is a brilliant physiological tell. In traditional Chinese physiognomy and medicine, the complexion of the face is a direct window into the state of the internal organs and the flow of qi. A face like raw sheep liver implies a dark, purplish-red, congested complexion.
So he's basically red in the face.
Yes, but deeply so.
Hmm.
This suggests deeply stagnant blood and intense, suppressed rage. It indicates a liver system, which in Chinese medicine governs the smooth flow of emotions that is dangerously volatile.
It's the physical manifestation of a psychological bomb. It reminds me of those incredibly high-end wellness retreats.
Oh, how so?
You know, you have a yoga instructor sitting on a silk cushion, surrounded by singing bowls, burning sage, talking in a hushed voice about cosmic balance. But when you look closely at his face, the veins in his neck are bulging, and he looks like he's one traffic jam away from a total psychotic break.
That is painfully accurate.
And the second someone's cell phone rings during class, he reaches under his mat and pulls out a sharkskin sword.
That analogy perfectly isolates the mechanism of aesthetic hypocrisy at play here. The serenity is a weaponized facade. Because the moment Hua Qingfeng opens his eyes and realizes his nephew has brought the law to his doorstep, that raw sheep liver face flushes with pure fury.
The zen is gone instantly.
He doesn't offer them tea. He doesn't sit down for a mediation session. He instantly denounces his nephew as a rebellious son who has ruined the family's pristine reputation, reaches for the sword, and prepares to execute him right there in the crane pavilion.
He goes from 0 to 100 in a millisecond. And Yang Ming, our eternal peacemaker, who's probably realizing he has made a massive mistake, steps in to try and de-escalate. He has to stop this crazed uncle from committing a murder right in front of them.
And here we see Yang Ming relying on the only tools he has left. His reputation and high-minded philosophical platitudes.
He's desperate.
He introduces himself, throwing around his martial title to establish parity, to show the uncle that they are men of consequence. And then he attempts to weave a massive rhetorical net to catch the uncle's rage.
He goes full philosopher. He begs the uncle to protect Hua Yunlong from the monk Jigong who is hunting him, and he uses this quote: "Monks, praise monks. Buddhism thrives. The three religions originally belonged to one family."
This is an appeal to a very specific, historically significant philosophical stance in ancient China, the syncretism of the three teachings:
Which are?
Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. By saying they originally belonged to one family, Yang Ming is trying to elevate the conflict. He's trying to shift the context from a dirty, embarrassing family murder to a grand clash of spiritual titans.
He's changing the narrative.
Yes, he is implying if Ji Gong, a Buddhist monk, comes to your temple to take your nephew, it is a direct insult to your Taoist authority. You must protect your nephew not out of love, but to protect the dignity of your spiritual path.
So he's playing on the guy's pride.
It is a highly sophisticated rhetorical move designed to stroke the uncle's immense ego.
And amazingly, it seems to work. The uncle actually stops. He calms down, sheaths the sword, and looks at Yang Ming. He asks, very calmly, "Are you truly sincere about saving him? Or is this fake?"
He's testing them.
And Yang Ming, desperate to seal the deal and keep everyone alive, says, "Of course we are sincere. We wouldn't have escorted him all the way up this mountain if we weren't."
Yang Ming is doubling down on the role of the chivalrous savior. And Hua Qingfeng recognizes this vulnerability.
He sees right through him.
The uncle realizes that Yang Ming is entirely constrained by his need to appear honorable. So Hua Qingfeng springs the ultimate trap. He says, "Good. Since you are sincerely trying to save him, I need to borrow something from you. Are you willing to lend it?"
And Yang Ming, who is probably just so relieved that the sword has been put away, replies with a lighthearted joke. He says, "Sure, anything but our heads. Those are attached to our necks. But anything else, you can borrow."
It is a moment of profound dark humor that exposes Yang Ming's fatal miscalculation of the genre he is currently inhabiting.
Yeah, he thinks he's in a buddy comedy now.
He makes a lighthearted joke, assuming the uncle wants to borrow money, a horse, or perhaps a magical artifact. He is treating this like a standard martial arts negotiation.
But the floor is about to drop out from under them, so what does this all mean? Well, Ha Qingfeng looks at them and says, "I don't want your heads. I want to borrow your hearts."
What's fascinating here is how Hua Qingfeng weaponizes Yang Ming's metaphorical claim of giving one's heart to a cause and makes it violently, horrifyingly literal.
Literal hearts.
He explains that to defeat Jigong, he must forge a dark magic weapon called the Five Ghost Dark Wind Sword. And the primary, irreplaceable ingredient for this demonic weapon is the fresh hearts of human heroes.
The hearts of the very guys sitting in his living room. It is a massive, terrifying escalation. Why human hearts? Let's unpack the mechanics of this magic system. How does carving out Yang Ming's heart help defeat a Buddhist monk?
We have to understand the metaphysical physics of this universe. Jigong is a Buddhist arhat. His power is often represented as a golden light, which is the ultimate manifestation of pure, unadulterated yang energy, divine righteousness, and cosmic truth.
So it's basically pure good.
Yes. To counteract absolute yang, you cannot just use a sharp piece of metal. You need absolute yin. The five ghosts refer to dark, malevolent, stagnant spirits, often associated with decay, and the five toxins in esoteric lore.
And the dark wind.
The dark wind is the breath of the underworld. So to forge a weapon capable of cutting through divine light, Hua Qingfeng needs to anchor this immense yin energy into the physical plane.
And a human heart does that.
Not just any heart, the hearts of renowned living heroes. In blood magic traditions, the heart is the seat of the Shen, the spirit, and the most potent reservoir of human vitality.
It's their life force.
By murdering righteous men and corrupting their life force, Hua Qingfeng is performing an act of ultimate spiritual defilement. The sheer metaphysical weight of that atrocity generates enough dark yin energy to forge a blade capable of challenging Jigong. The aesthetic of Taoist balance on his robe was a complete inversion. His true nature is aligned with decay and malevolence.
The realization must have been like a bucket of ice water for the heroes. Lei Ming, who we know is hot-headed, is the first to snap out of the shock. He instantly abandons all the polite philosophical talk.
He's done playing nice.
Yeah, he starts cursing the uncle, calling him a mixed hair, which is a highly derogatory term for a Taoist, implying they're impure or fake. He yells that they gave the uncle face, and he rejected it, so they are leaving.
Lei Ming attempts to shatter the rhetorical trap with pure, blunt aggression. He recognizes that the social contract was a predatory illusion, so he violently breaks it.
Right. And Yang Ming, who is probably pale and terrified at this point, agrees. They stand up to physically walk out of the room they just talk themselves into.
But it is far too late.
Yeah. Huang Feng simply laughs, and he delivers one of the most chilling lines in the text. Heaven has a road you don't take. Hell has no gate, but you barge right in.
That perfectly summarizes every single decision they've made.
Right. They weren't kidnapped by demons. They practically kicked the door to hell open and asked for a tour.
It brings the narrative architecture full circle. Jigong gave them the path of heaven, the simple, safe, non-active road of staying inside the temple quarantine. They refused it.
They just couldn't sit still.
Through a sequence of unexamined impulses, boredom, ego, a botched intervention, and a desperate need to maintain social face, they navigated themselves flawlessly into the jaws of an esoteric trap. And to ensure they cannot leave, Huang Feng calls out accomplice Jiang Tenrui, the golden-eyed Buddha.
Which is another terrifying name, honestly. Jing Tanri steps out, points his sleeve, recites an incantation, and casts an immobilization spell. The text explicitly states that escaping now is harder than ascending to heaven.
They are completely trapped.
The four heroes are instantly frozen in place, paralyzed, entirely at the mercy of a sorcerer who intends to harvest their organs.
This is the exact literal manifestation of the mortal danger Jigong warned them about on day one.